Since we had already completed our wonderful bug hunt by turning the nest into quite literal hell as I went back and saw that it was still a lake of fire, I had one more place to go before I headed home. That was to the riverside cabin. I promised everybody I'd swing by and see how everything was going. They also said they had a surprise for me. As I flew, I wondered what it could be. When you're up there and listening to nothing but the wind, your mind tends to wander. Sometimes to some of the weirdest things ever. I thought maybe they'd found someone else, but no, they would have mentioned that. Would they have actually expanded the house? Can they? Would they have done something else? Did they move? I don't know. They seemed to be smiling, so, well, if one of us lizards can actually smile, then yeah, we'll see how it goes. As I got close, I could see that the other flyers were up and about. They noticed me a long way off, and they flew very close to welcome me. They even guided me in, giving off a strange type of as a strange noise, kind of a signal to them all. Not something my ears, or whatever counts as ears, actually picks up very well. I wonder it's because they're a different type of lizard than me, but who knows? Eventually, we got close and landed right next to the house, and everyone came out to say hi. I was actually very surprised. Everybody was in good health and in good spirits, so hey, life's little bonuses, right? The kicker is, there was actually additions to the house. I thought this was not even a possibility, but somehow they had got a hold of the tools and actually started to expand. And doing so, they wanted to show me what they had done. I commented on the features from the outside, which, though not the greatest work I've ever seen, was definitely not done by an amateur. As we walked towards the front, they even noticed how the way I was walking and commented on my new features, how I was sleeker and more refined in my movements. It wasn't a jarring, blocking movement anymore. Usually, the only time I walk with any type of grace is when I'm on all fours, and I don't exactly do that all too often. Unless I'm swimming, of course, but I don't do that often either. As we worked our way through the house, they motioned us towards the back room, the one that had been expanded. To my surprise, our wonderful snake lady Lamia was there all coiled up. But that was not the surprise. What the surprise was when she saw me and she lifted herself. It was still a bit cold for her to be moving around, but she raised herself up and I saw something I didn't expect to see. For a moment, I thought she had legs. Well, she does. Sort of. It's though she now has female hips, but they're not exactly the hourglass shape perfectly. No, no, no. She looks brawnier, almost. It seems as though that dinner she had before going into hibernation really played in. Apparently, the hunger had gotten a hold of her, and she had chowed down on a couple of guys, if I remember correctly, and then slowly made her way back. The fact that she was still basically coming out of her slumber made it so she was a bit lethargic. What really stuck out is the fact that she didn't have just little bit of hair now. She actually had long hair that stretched down. It was actually pretty. It really helped, especially since she now had much more humanesque features. I wasn't expecting truly to see her, but this was very interesting. As she raised herself up, she contorted herself slightly and simply said, "Well, what do you think?" I looked up close and I began to examine her body, looking close at each of the different curves and connections. From now, what seemed going from human to snake was not nearly as pronounced. It was clear that she had grown the more female parts, going down towards her tail, and yet it was odd. I couldn't figure things out. Why did she need such a long tail if all the parts she needed were going to be up in her human torso? Ow, wait, my brain hurts. With that, I moved up, and sure enough, she had also developed much more muscle tone. Even though lean, her muscle density was clearly denser, and she was definitely mobile too. As she began to move around, you could see that she had much more dexterity, and she had much more speed, as she showed off by grabbing a hold of me without me even noticing. I knew she was fast before, and that's what kind of scares me about her, but she just wanted to see me wiggle out of her grip. She also had a lot of power. I swear, that snake tail is just solid meat, solid muscle. It made me a little nervous, but she let me go. She was just teasing, of course. Though, as she let me go, my wonderful female lizard companion started to get kind of handsy. I let them know this was making me a bit uncomfortable, and we started to walk over towards the new sleeping area for them. It seemed as though with their new bodies they needed to be more elevated, just like I was. Since they didn't have a cave system to climb into, they would have to actually settle for the attic. The attic itself was set up as though it was a bunch of nests. They had found more materials and they had set up seemingly large nests, even so far as to fill up the top part of the attic with more and more material to protect them from the weather, from the cold. As they curled up at night, they wouldn't need so much trouble, even though each of these nests still had several blankets. Clearly, there's no real way of making your bed when your bed is basically just a nest. However, that is when they dropped the bombshell. They looked at me and told me how they desired to mate. I had to pull myself back. I was worried. I had to remind them that I have my ladies waiting at home. I have multiple ladies waiting at home, and I'm not going to betray them. They already have agreed to share me amongst themselves. Of course, our reptilian ladies didn't really give a shit at that point. They reminded me that it wasn't just a need of survival, but also biological necessity. They wanted to have children. And then it hit me. Oh shit, they're in a mating cycle. That's when I sniffed very hard in the air. Yep, they're in a mating cycle because every single cell in my body suddenly started tingling. In the same way guys do the first time they see a woman who's interested in actually sharing time. Everything was drawing me towards them, but I was trying desperately to actually hold myself. Oi, this was not going to be easy to do. I tried to excuse myself as best as I could, saying if they want me, they should actually go talk to my girls. As I tried to make my way down the stairs, I didn't get very far, as a very long and very powerful snake tail grabbed me by the legs, wrapped them up along with my tail, and pulled me upside down and held me up. She got close to my face before speaking. She started to motion towards the bodies of my lizard ladies and see if I was not interested in them. I was having difficulty holding my body in place at that point as not to actually jump on these lizard ladies and just go to town. Along with that, the Lamia was being beyond suggestive, as she started to use her hands to move around her body to push up certain parts towards my face to try to entice me even more. Though on the outside I was stoic thanks to my condition. On the inside, all I could think of is, yes, I am the alpha male of these groups, and it's good to be the king. However, I focused on my own senses, and I asked them, if they call us monsters, I ask you all, are we actual monsters? Are we? With that, they seemed to look at each other, and as though the part of their brain that had the last bit of logic began to kick in. Are you going to give in to your base desires and be a monster? Yes or no? The lizard females, to include my lovely Lamia, decided to relent. While hanging there, I just said, look, if you want this, it's not just up to me anymore. You better get permission from my ladies back home because look, just, you're putting me in a bad position here, a very bad position. And the last thing I need is the trust that everybody puts in me to be even partially questioned. So get permission from them. As I finished that last statement, the tail released from my legs and I just went thump onto my head. Ow, is all I said as I got up. As I talked with the rest of the group, we began to rationalize about all our different adjustments. It wasn't until we started talking about who or what we were eating to see what type of mutations when it suddenly hit us like a brick. I was told that my proportions and my movements were much more graceful. And then I realized that I had snacked on a full female and then some. Not only that, but I had females before, and I suddenly remembered that's when I started to change in that area. I wasn't exactly growing a uterus. I'm not exactly crapping out eggs here, but still, it has adjustments to me. Along with that, we looked over at our Lamia, and sure enough, she had more masculine features, as she had completely consumed two full grown men. This was a revelation that we should have figured out a long time ago, and many of us smacked ourselves in the head like, oh, why didn't I see that? Son of a. Oh. With that, the humans of the group laughed at our condition and thought it was absolutely hilarious. Though realizing this meant that we had to be just a little bit more picky on exactly what or who we dine on. Though this would come into play later, I'm sure. We didn't think about it too much, as there was no other human sustenance to actually consume at this moment. Though they offered me to stay, after our lengthy discussion and a few glasses of water, which I was dying of thirst at that point, I needed to head home. I said my goodbyes and I headed back. Flying back, I could see everyone rush out as soon as they saw me, and I got a hero's welcome, which I was grateful for. And then I looked down at my ladies as my two dolls ran up and grabbed a hold of me, not ever saying anything. But they weren't the only ones grabbing a hold. I even had one come up behind me, jump on my back, and hold as tight as possible. I had to remind her that though there's a couple on my legs right now, she was actually pushing something or a pair of somethings into my back, which, look, I've been gone for a few days. That might not be a good idea to do right now. This got everyone's attention and made them chuckle a bit. Though the kids were a bit lost, I'm sure if they were awake at night, they could hear what was going on as I made sure the ladies were not in any question on who I was sticking with. After that time, I worked on patrol, and it took a while. It took a few days. I kept expanding my patrol further and further out. Every single time, I might find something, but nothing really of use. Eventually, I found an old house, at least what was left of it. Part of the side had been busted in. Either some sort of vehicle had run through it or something, but it had collapsed. Whatever vehicle was there was gone. I'm guessing somebody hit it with the truck or something and just kept going. But I didn't see a truck or anything like that. Whatever happened, it sure made the people inside run like hell. Because I started looking through. I couldn't find provisions for it, nothing. However, I did find something else of use. A bunch of canning jars. Old school canning jars that don't need to be replaced every single year. But I did find lids. I did find a pressure cooker. I found everything I needed. They had everything stocked. The only thing that was really gone was any type of food or spices or anything like that. Preservation was there. Score, I said out loud, and then suddenly realized I might want to stay quiet just in case someone's watching. As I continued around the house, I found new beds, dressers, more clothes, tools, and something that is very rare to find nowadays: fuel. Actually, good fuel. Like chainsaw fuel that you buy at the store, pre mixed in a metal container. This stuff is extremely stable and it's going to hold for a long time. I immediately grabbed a few items and carried them back. Even though my wingspan is pretty large, I have limits on how much weight I can carry. But off I went into the wild blue yonder. Hopefully I don't get lost again. When I got back, I told everybody what I had found and immediately dropped everything off that I had, grabbed the satchel, and headed back out, this time grabbing even more. This would take days, and I was going to need some help. We were able to get one of the trucks over there, not burning up much fuel, but I did have to check out the route. Unfortunately, we couldn't take the most direct route as part of the road itself was blocked. And unfortunately, I am not flying with fuel. Thank you very much. There are many things I'm not going to fly with, and that's one of them. Last thing I need is to be hit by something and then come down and crash and lose all this. So they had to take the long way. But we were still able to get everything back, and this helped tremendously. Contacting the other homesteads and the other towns, we said we would share the wealth, and of course, everybody showed up as possible. Unfortunately, the far town only sent their flyers over as they figured it would be the most direct route, though it was amazing to see how well they had progressed in their flight, even though she still kept her head down a little bit, being the very submissive girl she is. Seeing her land with those feathery wings spread was just a sight to behold, which made everybody pause. She thought she did something wrong at first, and of course, all the kids wanted to go up and pet her wings, which she thought was cute, because all the kids always want to pet her wings. After she left, we were surprised it took so long, but our wonderful reptilian females had finally shown back up, and they came in for whatever they could get. Though they definitely had more on their minds, considering they wanted to talk to my girls privately. I didn't know they had actually gone for their little meeting until I heard them arguing. And by arguing, I mean very loud yelling. I didn't hear either of my dolls, as they don't actually yell, but it was still interesting to hear almost screeching from both sides. Eventually, things calmed down, and I asked them, okay, what the hell's going on? I needed to know because the one time I actually tried to get in, they immediately slammed the door into my snout, which, by the way, that hurt. As I went to talk to them, I was immediately pulled directly into the room and pushed off to the side as they slammed the door. It's though they didn't want the rest of the group to find out what the hell was going on. I mean, I could see this was a private matter after all. With that, they began to explain their deal. I wondered what the hell type of deal this was. I mean, here I'm the one about to be passed around like a softball. What the hell's going on? With that, they said that starting next year, they would lend me out for mating season, but only mating season. I didn't even know when that was, and neither did the lizard ladies, as they had only started going through their mating cycle now. There was something about the mutation that didn't allow them to cycle, at least not in a way they understood. None of them had laid any eggs. None of them had had any type of need for absorbent materials. And here they are, just overwhelmed with the desire to activate their desires. A few minutes in, and I had to clear my head. I just couldn't believe they're just gonna, well, they're basically pimping me out. I couldn't wrap my brain around it, so I just needed some time. I told them that's all I needed was time. But as I went to leap off, my two dolls just walked up and grabbed me by the side. I looked at them both and said, "Don't worry, I'll be right back." With that, I took to the skies and I started my patrol again. Thankfully, it was early afternoon so I could see, and it was time for me to stretch out my patrol route to see what else was there. To my absolute surprise, as my mind was swimming with all sorts of strange, interesting, and horrifying thoughts, I saw something. Is that a cabin? Yeah, there's a cabin down there. What the hell's that? It looks like a hunting cabin. What the hell? I better go in and take a closer look. As I began to bring myself closer and closer, circling the area as I slowly descended, I eventually turned to go over the cabin. First time over. Nothing. I went in from another angle. Nothing. Maybe no one's. Ow! Okay, I'm going down. I'm going down. Okay. Oh, this is gonna suck. As I rummaged through the branches as they slap at me, I tried desperately to curl up to minimize the impact, but nope. I crash and cry out in absolute pain as I landed in a way that damaged my wings enough I'm not going to be flying for a while. The roar that I cried out could be echoed all the way down the valleys on both sides. I'm sure whatever had just hit me was probably scared at this point. However, I looked at my bug armor. Nothing had pierced, but god damn did that hurt. Wait a minute. What is this? I looked. Oh, crap. Nope, grazing wound. It bounced it sideways. Okay, I gotta get out of here. Now I'm wounded prey. I went from predator to wounded prey in a half a second. Not good. Not good. Heading off through the trees, I tried my best to walk and run on all fours, but the way I'm hit, nope, nope. It may only be a grazing wound, but it's enough that I can't use my arms that way. It was, oh, God, gotta run, gotta get. Oh shit, what was that? I stop and listen. There's something else in the woods. It's coming from the direction of the cabin. Oh, shit, I'm being hunted. I gotta get out of here. As I run, all I can think of is who or what is chasing me.